It is Monday night, 11 p.m. Eastern time. You know what that means. It's time for the Armondo Black SEC top 5 rankings going into week 13. So get your popcorn ready. Your boy's about to unveil his top 5 for the SEC top 5 football teams going into week 13. So get your popcorn ready. I'm Armondo Black, and this is the Dog Call. Good evening, and welcome everyone. I'm Armondo Black, and this is the Dog Call. Welcome to the Dog Call. We're going into week 13. Crunch time, playoff races are in full effect. We have some very important matchups this weekend. Not any really high profile matchups like we had last Saturday with Tennessee and Georgia. Nothing like that, but you have some potential situations where some chaos could be created in the SEC. Some games you want to keep an eye on: Auburn, Texas A&M, Florida, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Texas. You want to keep your eye on those games. Oklahoma, Bama, although I think Bama will handle Oklahoma, but you never know. You never know. None of us saw Vanderbilt happening. No one saw Vanderbilt beating Bama. I remember Bama had just came off a huge win against my Georgia Bulldogs the week prior. And then they went up to Nashville and just got ambushed. So tonight, I'm going to unveil my rankings going into week 13. And it's a little different. It's a little different. I'm doing it a little different this week, and I have my reasons for doing it this way. I'm going to explain here shortly. So, without any further ado, all right, let me unveil this week's SEC Top 5. And here are my rankings. And some of you are wondering, wait a minute now, Mondo, how you going to have Bama and Ole Miss tied for third? I'm going to explain that. So let me just run down the list here. At number 5, those Tennessee Volunteers, even though they took a L Saturday night to my Georgia Bulldogs, I still believe this team is a playoff team. Right now, they're at full strength. They're healthy. I think they're a very dangerous team. If they can find their way into the playoffs, they're a dangerous team. They're going to need some help from some teams in front of them. They're going to definitely will need some help from Auburn. They could definitely use some help from Florida, and most definitely could use some help from there's a different avenues that Tennessee can get right back into this thing. Auburn could beat Texas A&M. Florida could upset Ole Miss in the swamp. Oklahoma could upset Bama. Kentucky could upset Texas. And let's look at out of the conference, because there's some situations that also could help Tennessee. Army could upset Notre Dame. And all eyes is going to be on Columbus, Ohio at 12 noon. SEC, a lot of SEC teams are going to be watching that game. Fans are going to be watching that game. Everybody has a lot of interest in that game. The reason is, how well does Indiana perform against really the only ranked team that they're going to see this year? The only ranked team. So this will be the one test. This will be an audition for Indiana, for that committee, to see them as a legit playoff team. Now, if they go in there and they play a close game against Ohio State, they're in. They're in. All right. I don't think they could beat Ohio State, but if they could go in there and make it close, or if it's a situation where like Ohio State and Penn State, then Indiana's in. But if they go in there and Ohio State runs them up out of the horseshoe and beat them by 4 or 5 touchdowns, they're done. They're done. And that puts Tennessee right back in it automatically. So I say by the end of Saturday night, this Tennessee team may find themselves right back in the thick of things in the playoff picture. Okay. And that is why I have them at number 5. They're not dropping out of my rankings. At number 4, my Georgia Bulldogs. And I think this is the perfect spot for them to be at. Legitimate playoff team. They proved it to the world last Saturday night. But I don't really see a realistic avenue to the SEC championship game and into Atlanta. So Georgia will sit there at number 4. At number 3, there is a tie for number 3, as you can see. Ole Miss and Alabama. Reason is, one of these two teams are going to face the winner of the Aggies Longhorns game. Right now, Alabama would have the slight tiebreaker edge because Alabama beat LSU and Ole Miss lost to LSU. Bama and Ole Miss have not played this year. They're not on each other's schedule. But I think the SEC committee will look at the common opponents, and the common opponents would be the one thing that would propel Bama into Atlanta to defend their SEC crown against the winner of Texas A&M and Texas. From my eye test, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, from my eye test, I know you see the rankings right here, but if I had to do an eye test rankings, Ole Miss is the best team in the SEC. Hands down. They're the best, most, because right now they're playing the best football. They're the most complete team. They're stacked in the trenches on both sides, on offense and defense. Jackson Dart is playing out of his mind right now. This Ole Miss team is the most dangerous team in the nation, not just in the SEC, but in the nation. And from my eye test, from these right here, this Ole Miss team is head and shoulders above pretty much everybody else because of what they did to my Georgia Bulldogs. No excuses. They didn't need no help from the refs. They didn't need no fluke, lucky Hail Mary play to beat my Georgia Bulldogs. They beat my Georgia Bulldogs straight up. And that's really the first time in maybe a couple of years that a team has been able to do that to my Georgia Bulldogs without any help from the refs, without any fluke, lucky plays. They just decisively beat my Georgia Bulldogs. So therefore, I'm giving this team their props. At number 2, Texas A&M, the Texas A&M Aggies. They've been kind of up and down year. They really haven't really figured it out at quarterback. They started off with Weekman, and now they Marcel Reed is the starting quarterback. They really need to figure this thing out before the 30th, because at number one, those Texas Longhorns, they're playing good football right now. They are playing real good football right now. They are the best team, well, paper wise on record. They're the best team in the SEC. They only have one loss. That one loss is to my Georgia Bulldogs. Now, if I had to make a prediction of how this thing is going to go, I think at one time I thought the Aggies would beat Texas, but right now I really don't see them beating the Longhorns. The quarterback situation at Texas A&M is just really a issue. Their starting running back went down. Texas is getting healthier. Bond is back. That defense is at full strength. And I do believe that Texas will win that game on the 30th, regardless of it being in Kyle Field. I think the Longhorns will win that game. And they'll go on to Atlanta. And possibly, if they play Ole Miss, Ole Miss will win. I just think Ole Miss is a better team than Texas. If Texas meets up with Bama, I think it'll be a good game, but I think because of the weapons that Texas have on offense, the boatload of weapons, I think that'll be too much for that Tide defense. That Tide defense, I understand what they did against LSU, but hey, LSU was down. LSU was down, and they are missing several players. They've been hit with injuries real bad. The big games that Bama have won, the teams were shorthanded. Missouri, they did not see Brady Cook. Georgia, half of Georgia's defense, their best pass rusher, Mikal Williams and Smile Munden, did not play in that game. Their starting cornerback, Daniel Harris, was out on suspension. So, and Georgia still came back and almost won the game. So that Bama defense still has some issues, but I do believe they're going to get a big test. They're going to get a big test against Auburn in that Iron Bowl, because this Auburn team, remember that same Auburn team, it took a lucky fluke 4th and 30 play to beat Auburn and Jordan Hare last year. And this year, I don't think this game is going to go 4 quarters. That Iron Bowl is going to go 4 quarters, because Auburn has a defense and Auburn has an elite receiver, Coleman, that I highly doubt anybody in that Tide secondary can guard one-on-one. So there you have it. This is my top 5 right here. The way and the thing is, it's going to sort itself out. Everything is going to manifest itself. Texas and Texas A&M, both of these teams will not make the playoffs. One of these teams will be eliminated, which will move everyone else up. It'll move Bama up. I think Ole Miss is in the playoffs. If they can just win out, take care of business against Florida, take care of business against Mississippi State. Every bracket that I've seen, every bracketology from CBS to ESPN to Fox, NBC, every network has Ole Miss in the playoffs. They had the same thing for Bama. Bama just went out, take care of business. But the problem with Bama is, here's the problem. I know what that guy from the committee is saying. The guy is saying he's not going to penalize team for losing in the conference championship. But there's no rule, nothing in there that says, okay, so if you go to the conference championship game, so basically what they're saying is conference championship game is not going to count. So why play it? And that's a lie, because the loser of the Big 12 conference championship game is not getting in the playoffs. The loser is not getting in the play. If BYU loses, BYU only has one loss. If BYU loses to Colorado, or let's just say hindsight to Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game, they're not getting in. The same can be said for Miami. Miami has one loss. They go to the ACC championship game and play a one-loss SMU, and SMU beat Miami. Miami is out. So if the conference losers from the ACC and the Big 12 are out, then why are the Big Ten? I can understand the Big Ten situation because Ohio State would go in with only one loss. Oregon is undefeated. So quite naturally, if Oregon, let's just say hindsight, if Oregon beats Ohio State is still going to get in, but they're going to get in as a low seed, a very low seed, and they'll be traveling. But if Ohio State beats Oregon, or that committee is not going to drop Oregon out. You have two teams with one team, two teams, one team is undefeated, and the other team only has one loss. So quite naturally, that's understandable. But the SEC situation is actually worse than the ACC because you're going to have a 2-loss Bama taking on a 1-loss Texas. So the committee is going to say, okay, everyone else, if you lose your conference championship game, that's a must. Your conference championship game is a must win. But when it comes to the SEC, so what the committee is telling the ACC in the Big 12 is, okay, you the loser of those conference championship games, they're out. But the SEC conference championship loser gets a pass. And in what world is that fair? And I'm a SEC guy, born and raised, but in what world is that fair? What world is that fair? But we could be heading for that. So right now, Bama holds the tiebreaker over Tennessee, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So more than likely, we may have a Bama in Atlanta facing the winner of Texas and Texas A&M. One thing's for sure, one of the two teams that's ranked 1 and 2, either Texas or Texas A&M, they're going to be out. They're going to be out unless something crazy happens, like Notre Dame loses the Army or Minnesota beats Penn State. That's another game you want to keep an eye on as well this weekend because that could happen. Minnesota's tough at home. It needs to be something weird happening in the Big Ten in order for the SEC to get 5 teams. Of all 5 of these teams, there's a possibility that we could get, let's see, there's a possibility that the SEC could get 5. Now, one thing's for sure. Texas A&M, Texas, one of those two teams are going to be out because Texas strength of schedule is terrible. And that's not their fault because coming into the season, these schedules were made last year. Okay, those schedules were made last year. So no one saw that Harbaugh was leaving to go to the NFL. No one saw that Michigan would regress and take a step back and be this bad. I'd had Michigan winning at least 9 games, but I didn't think they would be unranked at this point of the season. So Michigan's taking a step back and being as bad as they are this year is really hurting the Texas Longhorns because they have nothing else on their resume. Their only signature win is Vanderbilt. So if they lose in Kyle Field, I think it's a wrap. I think it's a wrap because they won't even have the argument of, well, we're runner up in the SEC, playing in the SEC. They won't even be able to play that card because the two ranked teams that they saw this year, the two teams that are ranked in the college football playoffs, they would have lost to both of them. So they would have nothing else to stand on other than that one victory against Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt would be the strongest win of the entire season for Texas. And I don't see them leaving a 1-loss Indiana out that would have a close loss against Ohio State and putting Texas in over Indiana. I'm sorry, I don't see that happening. So Um, it's going to be some serious chaos. It's going to be some serious chaos. But one thing is for sure, I'm very, very satisfied of where my Georgia Bulldogs are, because we have the number one strength of schedule, the number 3 strength of record. We're good. Our signature wins against the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns, against the number 7th ranked Tennessee Volunteers, and against the forgot where Clemson was ranked. By Clemson is ranked in the is I think Clemson is a what, 18 or 19th. Georgia has some signature wins and 2 good losses to Ole Miss and Bama, 2 teams that are projected to be in the playoffs. So it could get a little dicey here at the end. It could get a little dicey at the end. And as long as all of these teams take care of business this weekend and take care of business the rest of the way, the only 2 teams that will be playing against each other before the end of the season will be Texas and Texas A&M. So everyone get your popcorn ready. This is going to be a ride. This is going to be something. This is going to be this finish. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And we're going to have, will we have some chaos this weekend in the Big Ten? Like I said, keep an eye on 2 games in the Big Ten. Keep an eye on the margin of victory for Ohio State if they beat Indiana. But if Indiana upsets Ohio State, oh my goodness, that will that will create a ripple effect throughout the college football world. And also keep an eye on Penn State and Minnesota. That is another potential upset there, because Minnesota is tough. They are tough as hell to beat at home. So everyone, get your popcorn ready. Thank you all for coming out and joining me here this evening on this Monday night. Hey, this is what we do over here. Monday top 5 SEC. Let's go down the list again. At number 5, those Tennessee Volunteers. Even though they took an L Saturday night, I still believe this is a playoff team. At number 4, my Georgia Bulldogs, who I think is the most dangerous team right now in the nation, especially when they're at full strength. At number 3, those Alabama Crimson Tide and the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear. If it comes down to a tiebreaker situation between the 2, Bama will get the nod and go to Atlanta and play the winner of Texas and Texas A&M. At number 2, the Texas A&M Aggies. Unfortunately, it's a must win for them on the 30th. It is a must win for them on the 30th. The Longhorns at number 1. If they lose on the 30th, they still have a slight path. They're going to need some help. They're going to need some help from elsewhere to get in, and then I think it will come down between them and Indiana, or between Texas, Indiana, and Tennessee. And I look, pretty much I think Tennessee will get the nod, because Tennessee has a great win. Tennessee has a great win. They beat Bama. So everyone, hey, it's crazy. It is crazy. It's like a battle royal. It's like a WWE battle royal. You don't know how this thing is gonna go. All right. So, but as a Georgia Bulldogs fan, I'm gonna be honest with you. I wouldn't give a damn if long as we get in the playoffs. I don't give a damn about going to Atlanta. Texas A&M, Texas, the Aggies, Bama, Ole Miss. Ole Miss has never played in the SEC championship game. So that would be monumental for that program, for them to get the opportunity to go to Atlanta and play for an SEC championship. To Bama fans, that's their Super Bowl. Going to Atlanta, playing in the SEC championship game and winning the SEC, that's their Super Bowl. That's their national championship now. That's their thing now. All we care about here at Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs fan, we want the big prize, the national title. So everyone, get your popcorn ready. Hey, it's gonna be a long ride. It's just November the 18th. This thing ain't over until the 20th of January. So everyone, buckle up. And like I always say, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Make sure you hit that like button, share this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, shame on you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can get notified on every time that we crank up a live over here. We have some great college football content over here. So everyone, thank you for coming out to the Dog Call. I'm Armondo Black. Peace and blessings. And like I always say, take care of yourselves and each other. And one last thing, win, lose, or draw, no matter what, for life. Go Dogs. Sick 'em. Woo, 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 woo. This has been the Dog Call. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night.